welcome you here tonight, and I'd like to express our appreciation for support from the Jewish Community Foundation, from the Leshman family, and from Constellation Energy, which helped us be able to make this exhibit. The exhibit was definitely not planned with knowledge of where current events would be putting us right now, and it does not reflect on the conflict with the Palestinians or any of that. The purpose of this exhibit is really to explore some of the different ways in which the Jewish communities of this area of Greater Hartford have been connected to Israel, both as originally as a dream, as an idea of a Jewish homeland in Israel, and then as a reality of the country itself after 1948. And the exhibit also doesn't cover every aspect that you could cover under that umbrella. It looks at a few different kinds of connections. So this panel over here talks about early Zionist movement, dreaming of Zion, and then organizing for Zionism in Hartford. And Hartford was a very active center of Zionism, of Zionist organizing and politicking to some degree up to the point of 1948. We also talk about raising funds for Israel in different ways. We talk about visiting Israel from very early days in the 1920s and 1950s, trip to Israel that you see along the wall here by a scrapbook kept by Emma Cohen from the trip that they took in the 1950s, to more widespread patterns of visiting Israel in more recent decades when it became much more frequent as an experience. We talk about celebrating Israel. From the poster that you see on that wall behind you is an original poster from 1921 when Chaim Weizmann and Albert Einstein came to Hartford as part of a tour of the United States to raise money for what was known as the Keren Hayesod, the Jewish Fund, Jewish National Fund, and Einstein was also raising money and getting support for the Hebrew University, so that was part of that. And then we talk about other times of celebrating Israel through the 70s and the 80s, through walkathons and that kind of thing. Over here we talk about playing a role in the defense of Israel from people who volunteered during World War I to fight against the Ottomans in Palestine, to people that were trying to gather arms for Israel in the 1940s and also in the 1960s. And we talk over here about moving to Israel, both in early days and in more recent times. And anyway, so those are some of the ways of connection between our communities here in Greater Hartford and Israel. But of course, that's not the only kinds of connection there is and has been. So we hope to talk about some more of those. One of those kinds of connections that we didn't get to talk about in the exhibit is the presence of Israelis who live here and are part of our Jewish community. And therefore, I wanted to have this program be a little conversation where we can hear from a few Israelis who do live here and are part of this community about what their experiences have been. And it happened that one of the people I wanted to include is actually in Israel right now visiting. So I have a recorded video with Noit Bahar because she is actually in Israel right now. And then we're lucky to have Ronnie Segal with us tonight, who has been part of the Jewish community here for many years. So, so let me. Okay, so I basically asked Noit some of the same questions that I might have asked Ronnie, which is, how did you come here? When did you come? Noit came here in 2001 with her family. She had been in Seattle, she had been in New York, she ended up in West Hartford because her husband's family was here already. Many of you know Ronit, blanking on her last name. Shoma, thank you. So that's how they ended up here. And I'm just going to play a little bit where she talks about getting to know the Jewish community here and what that was like for her to become a part of. Connect or learn about the Jewish community here in West Hartford.
So that didn't come very easy. First of all, even in Israel, I come from a very unique, very special, kind of isolated even community, which is the kibbutz community. The kibbutz's community is only 2% of the population of Israel. And it's a very close kind of community that emphasizes community. Everybody in the kibbutz equal life. Sadly enough, this gorgeous idea by Karl Marx is now disappearing. Moving forward and getting involved with the Jewish community was kind of difficult for a few reasons. The first reason is myself. I was kind of thinking that I'm the real Jew versus everybody else who's not. And in that sense, living in West Hartford really opened my view of not only myself and how limited I was with my own thinking, but also about Jewish life. The first step to get involved with the Jewish community was via the JCC. Where my daughter joined her as a preschool. She joined her when she was 1 year and 9 months. At the JCC, I met many good friends who later became my community because I opened this little class that when the girls done for getting ready to go to kindergarten at 5, I knew I'm not going to join any synagogue, and so I opened my own little class where really the goal was to get friendly with Judaism more than anything else, just to get friendly with it. And that class grew by, one friend talked to another. It started with 6 little girls, and your girl, now young woman, Maya, was the 7th one, and she was our Shabbat. And so this is how I started to really build relationship with Judaism as someone who really left her version of Judaism and now needs to adjust it. I think the number one obstacle still is the language. I still don't feel very comfortable with the English language. I miss Hebrew every day of my life, and in that sense, my community helped me to feel welcome, even though English is not where I feel comfortable.
What are some of the big differences that you found between living in Israel and living here in Connecticut?
Oh, wow. So first of all, the weather. But so in where I live, with the people that I was getting very deeply friends with, everything has to be planned. Everything has to be like okay, let's get together next week. And in Israel, people where I grew up and how we lived was like knocking on the door. Somebody's coming in, and there is always enough apples in the refrigerator for everyone. Another thing is that you need to put a real effort in being Jewish in West Hartford. I guess it's all over the place other than Israel. In Israel, being Jewish is there. You're there, you're Jewish. I mean, of course, you can be Muslim and Druze and Christian and anything else, but you don't need to put any effort into being Jewish. And in that sense, it took me a while to understand that if I want my kids to grow Jewish, then I need to do something about it. So I think that and the language and the weather was.
So that's a little bit from Dorit, and we'll come back to her in a few minutes, but I wanted to give Robbie a chance to talk about how she first came here and what your role is there.
Okay, the minute they give me this, I have to warn them that this microphone is an accent. Because I found out that when I talk to a crowd in English, they shout. They only hear the accent. So I warn them, and then they're okay. So I came here as a shlichah. Shlichah is an emissary. I was chosen by the Jewish Agency to be sent to this community, chosen by Murray Shapiro, if anybody here remembers him. And the Jewish Agency has about 300 shlichim around the world. And the process of choosing them is a whole year process. But when you're chosen, somebody from a community choose you to come to their community. So Murray Shapiro came to Israel, and we met, and he said, "You're it." So he and Bobby became my adopted parents, kind of, grandparents, whatever it is. So I came to this Jewish community center, and I basically came, and my job was to make sure there is Jewish cultural with an Israel twist. So that means you have to plan programs to the Jewish community that has to do with Israel.
What year was that?
That was in 1969. It was after the 6-Day War. And when I came, the first thing I realized is that this community was so pro-Israel that I asked Murray, what is it they need to, what I need to do? They're already when I first came, I thought that everybody I met had somebody in Israel. So I said, well, what do you want me to do? So, of course, I knew what I had to do. That's what the Jewish Agency said me to do, so I did. I worked with children, I worked with families. I organized 2 family trips to Israel, the whole family, children, parents, which was very nice. And I worked in camps, I worked in college, I worked with everybody with programs. And because it was after the 6-Day War, it was the first time that there was Yom HaZikaron here. Yom HaZikaron in Israel is one of the most important days of the year because everything stops and all you do is think about the people who gave their life for the state to become a state. So that was probably the first thing I felt as a shlichah that I contributed to the community and it's being done until today, 48 years. And last year I said, this is the last year I'm going to be a staff person doing it. And somebody younger has to take it over because 40 years doing it was more than enough. But I also did it in New Haven, so in 2 communities. I made Yom HaZikaron part of the culture of a Jewish community center. When I first came, I felt that this community was very, very pro-Israel, very, very warm. I thought that everybody I talked to, with a cousin or an aunt or a friend in Israel, and I said, what do you want me to do with you? He said, nothing here, we'll help you. We'll help you. I became, in 1 week, I had 10 different helpers telling me what I could do for Israel. So that was an interesting part of it. Once I came to the Jewish Center, I predominantly worked with youth and families. But since I was here for 3 years, I also worked with camp, and I worked with the college, and I worked with Israeli families. That was at that time in the history of Israel, the Israelis who came to the States were kind of had negative feelings by Israel. They were kind of considered traitors, quote unquote, because they left Israel and they came here. Many Israelis came here for school. Many Israelis came here to find a better job or a better life. Many Israelis came here for industries that require knowledge that Israel had. But they all came here and we all came here with the same problems she was describing. The main thing is the language. English language is taught in Israel since the 4th grade, but it's taught like Arabic. It's taught like literature kind of language. It's not taught like a spoken language. I studied 5 years of Arabic. I cannot carry a conversation at all. Because the written Arabic and the spoken Arabic are 2 different languages. Same with Hebrew. The Hebrew language has such a depth of idioms and unbelievable, and the spoken one has a lot of idioms, and a lot of cursing, and a lot of argument of this type of that we don't exactly. That's one of the things I saw the difference. The difference between Israelis and the Americans is that I felt that they are very careful to criticize. They don't tell you you're wrong. In Israel, you do something I don't like. You say, no, you're wrong. Don't tell me this. In here I came, and they didn't give me a compliment. They said it was great when I knew it was great. They never. But if they wanted to criticize me, they used to say, why don't you suggest to do this or that? So, at the beginning, I never understood the salary of it. So that took a long time because, you have to work, you have to become part of the culture of work that you see, and you see a lot of people with a lot of different requests and talk. And if you don't understand the cues and the language of that, took me a while, and somebody suggested to me, just sit down in front of the television, and what was this guy who was the after the comedian? Johnny Carson. You listen to Johnny Carson and you read and then I used to say, for example, I came here, and the second year I was here, they had a conference of Jewish community workers in Worcester. I had to buy a car. I never had a car. So I said, okay, I will drive to Worcester. I never was from now. But they gave me directions. I said, okay, give me directions. I'll get there. Okay. So I went to Worcester. I looked for Worcester. I couldn't find Worcester. I came home. Why? Because all the highways started since Worcester. And all those kind of things happen to you because, like they taught us to say when it's bigger meanings, right? Okay, so somebody asked me what's happening, what such is what. I used to say, oh, how are you? I said, it's such, and such. And then people looked at me as if I came from the Congo or something. Where did I learn that? So the beginning is usually she's right in the language. And the fact that you depend on a car. You can't get anywhere with a public transportation. I would go from home to work to shop, and that's it. And if I wanted to go somewhere else, it was no bus. To get to the train in the car, there was no no way of. That was very hard because that was the only way I knew how to be independent. Is to use public transportation whenever I want. Because a car in Israel was not possible for a 20-something-year-old to have. If your parents had it, it was good. You can't take it to the United States. So the first snowstorm, I tried to clean the car, and I used I didn't know what to use, so I used something that stretched the whole car. Anyway, so when I first came, this Jewish agency gave us a mission, and the mission was to connect with the Jewish community. And that's what I did. They, at that time, did not tell me to work in Israel. There was a group of Israelis here that were hidden kind of.
Right.
Yes. Oh, the mic. I'm sorry. And nobody in the Jewish institutions really dealt with the Israelis in the community. And a typical Israeli family had a lot of issues that the Jewish Center or any of the Jewish Social Service or the day schools could have dealt with. They needed a place to stay, we needed a place to put their kids in school, they thought they needed to keep their kids, they couldn't keep them in private schools because they couldn't afford it. The food was different, the rent was different, they didn't know where to go, where to shop, and there was nobody that helped in a regular Israeli family to adjust to the community. Today, they have a staff person in the Federation getting help to the people from Israel who come here now because of what's happening in Israel. At that time, it was none whatsoever. They were considered just coming here. We didn't know they were hidden. So, because I was a shlicha and I was told to work only with the Jewish community, it took me a while to start working with the Israeli community. And the Israeli community had very, very specific needs because they wanted their kids to speak the language and the culture, but they couldn't pay for it. They had to go to work and leave kids with babysitters, and the kids didn't know the English, so they had to give up some. It was a complicated group. And because I was Israeli and I was a shlicha, they all came to me to ask me what to do, how do I do this and how do I do this. So I became a shlicha in both, besides what the Jewish agency thought would be my job.
And were you the first shlicha?
The second. I was the second shlicha here, and after me, every 3 years there was a shlicha. The 1 year, because of the budget, they didn't want to have a shliach or shlicha. I remember that whatever, they said, we just stop it for 2 years because of the budget, and we'll get it back. I said, I'll be here, I promise. So, when I first came here as a shlicha, I also got married at the Jewish Center. And I raised 3 kids here. Not all together at the same time. What else do you want me to?
Can you say a little bit about how the shliach program has changed over time? Or what you've seen, because you were kind of up to help the other shliachim.
Oh, well, the work, my being here professional changed. First, I came to shlicha for 3 years to this Jewish community center. Then I went back to Israel because shlichut is only 3 years after that. But I came back after a few years, and I came here and they offered me the job. So I worked here, and after about 20 years here, I went and became the executive director of the Federation of the JCC United. In between, as I said, I was the children director and the senior director and the assistant director and the associate director and the camp director. So I did almost every job at the center, which helped me to be an executive director because I made the business. So somehow it worked out, and I actually enjoyed every group that I worked with, and it was a great experience. And my English became better.
And in more recent years, there have been many more Israelis who come. How have you seen that change? Or what differences?
They came here for different reasons. I think the first group of Israel who came here probably came because after the Holocaust, the Jews either went to Israel or went to Europe, or the United States. They left Europe. So I think a lot of people went to Israel right after the Holocaust. And in Israel in the 50s, there was a very hard life. People were building the country. So you didn't have housing, you didn't have, all the food was a little harsh. So a lot of them decided to go to the United States. And at that time, there was a huge migration of Israelis to the United States, plus the people from the Holocaust who came to the United States. And I don't know any Israeli who came to Hartford who didn't have somebody that they know in Hartford. They don't go sit in Israel, put in the map and say, I'm going to go to Hartford. No Israeli said it to me yet. But they come here because they have a relative or friend or something. The second group of people who came here were students. Israelis, many of them are looking for example, people who want to become doctors. There is only, at that time, only one program that you could become a physician. Until today, Israelis go away from Israel to become a physician because of the number of spots in the universities in Israel are limited. So that was another reason why Israelis came to this community, and the defense industry. A lot of Israel who worked in Israel in the defense area were thought after to come here. We became known for doing it, unfortunately, but it was good for somebody who wanted to come here. And people came as students to improve their positions, like master's degree, doctorate. So there were a lot of reasons why people came here. And I think when you come here, it's a very pleasant community to come here because it's affluent and educated, warm, and I think people like that. And really, it's not too big, not too small. Israelis try to come here and immediately connect to other Israelis. The self-help groups of Israelis are perfected the communication system that beyond what you know.
Yeah.
And they have the same concerns. You come here to Israel with kids, you are sure you are able to maintain for your kids Israeli culture. Now it's impossible. After a while, you send your kids to public school because the day schools are too expensive. And before you know, those kids speak only English. And they become bilingual, or they don't. But their parents become bilingual.
And does the work of the shaliach, do you see that has changed over time, or is it pretty much the same as when you first came here?
it's changed a little. I think that we became more aware of the needs of Israelis as a group at the FCC, because we always had a Shaliach here. So there was always a person all Israel could go to. That the fact that we succeeded to do that was helpful to Israel. They come to us, where is the best school, where is the best neighborhood to rent their house, or to do this, or to do that. They needed camp. And a lot of Israelis would spend some of their money on going back to Israel this summer with their kids, because that was one of the only way that were ready to spend money to keep their kids connected to the Israeli culture. Because the Jewish schools did for Hebrew, but not for Israeli culture. And so it's a complicated life. But they like, everybody loves Hartford. All the Israelis say that they love to do Hartford.
Yeah.
So the shidduch worked.
Yeah.
And what did I else do as a shidduch? Should I tell?
You want to tell them about this story?
Tell you the story?
You can remember it.
Yeah, I remember. Do you?
And don't tell me.
I worked.
Well, I also asked Noe if she would say a little bit about, because she's an Israelite now, what she's feeling about the situation, and I'll play a little bit of what she had to say there, and then if you want to say anything.
I just want, before you do that, the biggest contribution the Israelis to this community was Hebrew teachers in the synagogue. The synagogue, the contribution was the Hebrew teachers. There was not one synagogue in this area that don't have Israelis teaching Hebrew. I don't know if the kids like it, but the synagogues liked it. A huge amount that used to help a lot of Israeli couples to make it, because they could work at the synagogues.
My Hebrew school teacher, I grew up in Westport, it was in kindergarten, and my 4th and 5th grade teacher was Miss Israel-Hartford.
Oh, wow.
And I won prizes. I won something, and she gave me a Jaffa orange.
But part of what I worked here was with the young emissaries, and the young emissaries, I worked for 10 years at the Federation. I decided to retire from being an executive director. Was the best job of my life. They were young and intelligent. They went to all the school, all the day school, all the synagogue schools, to the universities, to colleges, to everywhere. And I remember a chapter at one time we had the Shaliach there, and the kid, the emissaries used to be hosted by families every 3 months, and the families had them, or twice, sometimes. So a kid said to his mother, I want the Shaliach to come and live with us. They were supposed to live with the family, they had a room and all that. So the mother said, you know, we don't have a room. One of the requirements is a room just for the Shaliach. So the kid says, why don't you build another room? The connection between the kids and the young emissaries that was super coordinating for 10 years, it was delightful. They stayed connected to those families even after they went back to Israel. The kids used to get older and come to Israel in a year or something, and would go straight to those families. And it was one of the best connections that I could think about, was the young emissaries. They were in between the high school and the army. So they were 18.
And did they also come for 3 years?
No, they came for 1 year. 1 year between the army. It's called an Israel service year. You can choose either to apply for coming here or to service in Israel. all kind of other.
Okay, let me play this and see if it's in the right spot.
Items. This is how the Jewish nation was able to be kept. All you have to do.
Sense of what you're feeling being in Israel on a visit right now, in the situation, what you're seeing that's different, or just how it feels to you being back here.
Yeah. So Israel right now is hurting more than anything else. There is more pain than hope, but that is not to say that there is no hope. But there is more pain than hope, and I think it's even show how strong we are when we know that right now we are more hurting than we are hoping, but that's okay because it's going to change. There will be more hope at one point than pain. But every day, there are still being bodies that are being recognized. Right now, it's only a DNA recognition.
Yeah.
Every day, Israel has to, face the world opinion that is based on lies, and really, it's unbelievable. They need to hate the Jews, and of course, every day there is the dilemma of how to deal with Hamas, and versus, what's the other. I don't know, people in Gaza, I would say Hamas altogether might be 50,000, and in Gaza maybe 2 million, so what about them, right? But, I do want to make it clear, and I know people here are different kinds of
She's speaking here about Israel not intending to hurt civilians, but still she's recognizing that harm is being done, but she wants people to know that it's not her Israeli policy to target civilians. I'm just going to jump ahead just on the thing she talks about at the end.
Is my good friend, but Ami's mom. And she lives in a small kibbutz again, everything can be Googled, that is called Bachan. And every morning at 4 a.m., I wake up by the sound, if I may say so, the beautiful sounds of the muezzin that is singing Allah Akbar, which comes from the next village. So I just want to let you know that in Israel, and I know there are so many rumors about Israel mistreating its Arab citizens and whatnot. In Israel, the muezzin is being heard more times than Shema Israel. So something to think about. Again, I'm not a witness, so I couldn't really care for Shema Israel, and I don't really care for the muezzin that says Allah Akbar. But it's important. It's important, I think, to remember the good things right now. It's important that we know to live together. We do. We know how to do it. We just need the good leaders that will allow us.
Yeah.
Only the word keyword is the word.
Yes.
That's not the electric crack leaders.
Use the rights.
So, Ronnie, do you want to share any thoughts?
Yes.
I don't know if it will help anybody. The problem I have is being here at this time, because the minute there is something like that in Israel, you want to be there because you want to contribute, or you want to, if you can fight, if not, you help. My whole family is there, so a good friend of ours lost a child in this festival and all that. And you really don't sleep much because during the day you're fine, but at night everything gets to your head. And I was already in the war that was very hard to do. It was this Yom Kippur War. And during the Yom Kippur War, I was in the reserve and I volunteered to go with the officer from the army to announce to people, families, that they lost somebody, and then stay with them for 3 months. So when I see those pictures of all these people dying, and some to say, I'm afraid that there will be a knock at the door. I know exactly what they're saying, so I get quite upset. And the only really, she's right, there is a huge amount of anger in Israel right now. But in spite of it, which is the greatness of Israel, in spite of the anger, because Netanyahu doesn't, and his government doesn't require a lot of positive these days or before, in spite of it now, they are united. And the strength of the Israeli population is being united. And actually, it's not the government of Israel who runs it now, but the people of Israel. All the necessary system of civilians and how to run the country is run now by Israeli volunteers. They collect the food, they disperse the food, they fund homes for people who are evacuated, or whatever. They run help soldiers, they help with the food to the soldiers, they help getting what the army doesn't have enough of, they get to them. You have to sit with all to the level of running the country by volunteer Israelis of every day. That's if they didn't do that, we would be really in bad shape, which is not in a great shape now, but then we would really be in bad shape. It's very hard for Israelis who are sitting here like me. I know they had to do it, okay? But there is no way to tell people who've never been in a war that it has to be when you see babies being killed in Gaza. It's impossible. So you live in a fake sense of you don't know who you talk to. I don't know who is pro-Israel and who's not. Even people who are pro-Israel, it's hard to explain how you can survive atrocities like that in a small country. I mean, there is not one Israeli who doesn't have somebody who is participating in the army. The small country, if the Hamas could walk from Gaza to Kfar Aza in 10 minutes and kill everybody in it, it's not right in Israel. It's impossible even to talk about it, never mind to understand it. So, first of all, there is a level of anger. Second, there is a sense of we have to win it because we have no choice. So every time you watch the news and you see more and more now, originally when it started, Israel had gotten some positive or support. I said to God, the minute we go to Gaza, Israel will go to Gaza, it would turn. And it did. You cannot find anybody today who understands that you need to support what Israel is doing in spite of the horrendous pictures who come on television. And everybody has that. And the amount of information that you can't read even coming on you, I don't know how many Jews can understand it and not feel that they don't want to associate with the country that can provide this kind of. It's in spite of all that, they would win, and if they win, then there will be 10 years of quiet.
Okay.
That's the history of Israel. Yes.
So I think there's a difference between being perceived as anti-Israel. You could be pro-Israel and against what the Netanyahu government is doing. Just like you can be pro-America.
At least now in Israel, it's saying the same.
Okay, so
Yeah.
So there's a difference between being pro-Israel and being pro-Netanyahu's government. Just like during the Iraq War, you could be pro-America but Iraq War. You could be pro-American and anti-Bush. And this is where we get in trouble in this country, where one side thinks that the other side is un-American because they disagree with the policies of the government that's in charge at that time. I've been talking to a lot of my Jewish friends over the last couple of weeks, and every one of us feels conflicted about this because we have a deep commitment to Israel and the idea of Israel, and an absolute bedrock commitment that Israel should exist as a country and as a source of pride for Jews. But feeling really, really troubled by what we are seeing on TV. And seeing what's going on. Today, the hospitals, being, basically.
Under the hospital, there is a hospital.
And I know, but a hospital is supposed to be a place for healing. It's not supposed to be a war zone. This is why we all feel so conflicted. So, I think we need to be careful between, to sort of separate out people's feelings about still being pro-Israel, but feeling very troubled and horrified by the war, but also feeling absolutely, true that what Hamas did was a horrible
Well, there's
atrocity.
140 people sitting somewhere, but you don't know where,
I know.
with babies. Who's feeding this child? Who gives him a baby a bottle of milk? Think about it. It's.
What I'm saying, what you're seeing is a lot of people saying things about their opposition to the war and feeling troubled by the war, and that's being interpreted as being anti-Israel. And I don't think that's necessarily the case. Now, there's a lot of anti-Semitism going on, which is horrible. What's going on in college campuses is just stupid. But it's very, very complicated for all of us as Jews to make sense of all of this.
But there's no sense to make.
I know.
You have to live with something that you don't have, that doesn't make sense to you. That's the problem of having a war.
I know.
Nobody likes a war, and sometimes you go and do things that.
But I was saying to Beth at the beginning, I think we have crossed a line at this point. We're losing, Jewish people, Israel, Jews in the United States, we are losing in the court of public opinion. Because what we're seeing going on in Gaza right now seems so awful. And the death and destruction we're seeing. I was saying, it looks like when we saw the images we're seeing when they were happening in Ukraine 2 years ago, Americans coast to coast were thinking, this is a terrible thing. Putin's bad, Russia's bad, we have to help the Ukrainian people. And if you turn on the TV now and you see what's going on in Gaza, and you didn't know it was Gaza, you might think, oh, that might have been Ukraine 2 years ago. And the sentiments are different, obviously.
Did you see on television the picture who came about Berlin in Gaza? And how they used civilians, how they killed civilians, in what way? No, the community, the television forgot it. But Israelis don't.
I understand that. And I love you, I've known you a long time, and I love to fighting with you.
No.
But I say this is why,
We
everybody I know that I
I
talk
agree
to,
with you. I'm
feels
not
so
arguing.
troubled by this. Because we think that Israel can be better, and maybe we've gone too far in Gaza at this point. I understand the need to ferret out Hamas and deliberate Hamas.
How do you do
But
that?
the collateral damage is so enormous at this time. And as a people who has been the subject of atrocities many times in history, we're troubled when we see bad things happening to people all over the world. And I think we're at a tipping point. And I really feel and fear for the future of Israel and for the world's opinion of Israel at this point. And that makes me sad. It makes me want to cry.
That's different.
Yeah.
So I will get off my soapbox now.
It's okay. I'm used to it. As an Israeli, I could argue with you, but this is a nice place, so
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, three quick things. Beth, I have to be honest with you, I really don't think this room should be used again. Sitting here, I'm getting about a quarter of what's being said, because that's number one. Number two, I think there's a bit of good news. I mean, if we talk about the current situation, if you read Times of Israel, Yoav Gallant is saying that Hamas isn't really in charge of Gaza anymore. So it seems like the war is going well. It's not clear where the hostage is. If Hamas is getting so weak, where are they? That's number two. And the third thing, to stick to the topic tonight, So I've always been a little confused. I've been living here a long time, and I go to Beit Mordechai, and the Israeli community here, it's a lot bigger than one would think. I mean, I know, I don't know, 60, 70 Israelis is probably double that. And I've always been curious why they don't want to be more united, like have a big cafe. I mean, they it seems like it's very just split, just like every other part of the community. But what do you think the reason? People who've been here a long time, students, young people, but there's just Israelis in so many different places here, and I would think they would want to have just more sense of it.
Think yourself. I thought I had a big voice.
It's a big room.
It's a long. It's not for lectures. Okay, so I'm not responsible for what Israelis do when they get here. A lot of Israelis meet together. I meet Israelis. Israeli meet Israelis. The fact that you don't know if they do or don't, I don't know. But they meet as groups with the same interests. Not all the Israelis want to be friends with all the Israelis who are here. Like if you went somewhere with Americans, in the Bahamas or someplace there is a community, just because you're all American doesn't mean you're all friends.
That's true.
So there are Israelis who want to be my friend, and there are Israelis who do not want to be my friend. So I'm okay with them. If we were in Israel, then we wouldn't be friends. So why just because we're here, we are friends? You have to choose your friend for. But they get together for certain things, like Yom HaZikaron, Yom HaAtzmaut, for holiday celebrations, and they're not always here. But no, they socialize. And Israelis like to socialize with each other because then they can scream about politics.
Thank you. Other questions out here from anything that we've been talking about? If not, I would just say thank you very much to Ronnie and Noe in absence. And I did want to point out there's a place here for you to contribute a little bit of your response or your wish for Israel's future. Part of the display there. And also, please help yourself to some refreshments, and I hope you get a chance to enjoy these.